Good morning, and good afternoon for those of us joining from the East Coast, Ava. We've got both coasts covered here today. I'm Melanie with the California Association of Realtors, proud to be part of the Woman Up team. And we are joined by Nicole Solari, who's our California coast, and David Davin, who's representing the East Coast. And we are going to be talking about building successful teams today. These two women have done that, and they are going to share their wisdom and insights with you today. We know how important teams are for women in real estate, and we just want to really dive deep into this topic and share a little bit more about what teams, why build a successful team and how you can take that step if you're a solo agent, or if you are working as part of a team, how can you build your own team? So we'll talk about lots of different aspects and how these two beautiful women were able to build their teams. So I just want to, if you could drop in the chat where you're joining us from today. And if you do want to chat with us, make sure you do change that chat to everyone. You'll see that there's a little drop down there. And if you do have any questions along the way, please drop them in the chat or put them in the Q&A, and we will get to them at the end. We do have a few questions that we want these ladies to answer for us. So I'd love to turn it over to Nicole to have you introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Nicole Solari here in what's usually normally the beautiful Napa Valley. We're a little bit dreary today, but I'm thankful for it because everybody knows California needs water, like realtors need listings. I run a team here, both in Napa and Solano County, which is our neighboring county. We do about 300 transactions per year, plus or minus, for about 150 million per year.
Fantastic. We need that cooler weather to make some great wine.
Yes.
And Dava, would you introduce yourself?
Yes, well, thank you, first of all, for inviting me to be here today. It's wonderful to be here with Nicole and yourself. We are in Maine, so I'm the founder of Portside Real Estate Group. We are about 9 years old, and we have 5 offices in Maine and 1 in New Hampshire.
Fantastic. So the first question, if you can share with me, what does your team look like? Dava, you want to start?
Yes, so I can kind of back up a little bit because my team's kind of large now, but I got my real estate license in 2008 and switched careers from a different profession. And I remember just being so petrified to be on 100% commission that I humbled myself and I started as an admin on a team. And I did that for about 8 months. And then I quickly just started my own team. I really saw the value in having that kind of collaboration, especially, having a young family. So I started my own team in 2009. And then in 2012, I actually opened Portside Real Estate Group. So I founded that and had my sales team growing, and then I grew a brokerage. So fast forward, I kept my team until the end of 2019. And at that point, I made a decision, I can't do both because they were both growing so much, and I, didn't want to let my clients down. I didn't want to let the agents down. So I stepped down from the team, which was a good thing because in March of 2020, the whole world blew up and I really needed my attention on the agency. So now my current team, I have a staff of 14 and we're supporting about 105 agents.
Wow, that's amazing. I think you raised a really good point that I'd love to dive in a little bit later about when people get started in real estate, it's often hard to make that jump and not have a steady income. And so I think that's a really hard thing for people to do. And joining a team can sometimes be a wonderful bridge to ease that transition, depending upon how you come into a team and what that structure looks like. Nicole, can you tell us a little bit about your team?
Yeah, so like Dava, real estate is a second career for me. So I started in 2014 as a solo agent. I was actually pregnant at the time. I took my real estate license exam on my due date. So had to have those special accommodations for my big old belly. I had to stand up to take the test as if it wasn't like nerve-wracking enough, which that sounds like so long ago, even though it really, 14 wasn't that long ago. I, started as an independent agent, and like many of us, like got really busy, and I was like, what can I do to not lose clients and still give them a high level of service, but still, be able to sleep at night and maybe see my family every once in a while. So I started a team. My team has transformed over the years. It evolved into what it is today, which is a team of 6 buyers agents and then 2 listing partners. And then I have a staff of 4 to support those. So we run pretty lean from a staff perspective, but the staff that I've had has been with us for a really long time. They wear many hats and they have very specific roles. So we do a great job of having a small, lean, but very productive support team.
Wonderful. That is great to hear. So what advice, Nicole, do you have for those who are considering building a team?
So I can tell you that I have failed forward, thankfully, not failed backwards. I do believe that part of being successful is taking those failures and learning from them. So I can do a whole 1-hour session on what not to do to build a team, if you guys want to hear that. But in all reality, there are so many successful teams out there and they're all structured different ways. And I think it really depends on what you want to be as a team leader. Do you want to be the rainmaker, or do you want to be the cheerleader, or do you want to be the listing partner? Do you want to be the person that just oversees? I mean, are you going to be active selling real estate or not? So I mean, those are some of the questions you have to ask yourself. And then you also have to give yourself some grace to realize that you can't snap your fingers and build a team overnight. If your goal is to step out of production, which was ultimately my goal, it takes a long time to get there. You don't just, hand your baby over in the basket and, go to Mexico and say adios. It took me a really, really long time to get there. And I've actually had to step back into production a couple of times when I've lost team members or when things got really busy. I remember about 2 months ago, I had to go on a listing appointment for the first time in a year. And I was like, do I have any business cards? And I was like, I don't even think I have business cards. How am I going to go on a listing appointment? So it was a little rusty, but you always have to expect change and know that change is good, and keep your pencil sharpened, because you never know when you're going to have to go on a listing appointment. If your goal is to be not in production, you might have to step in there. So as far as the advice that I have, I would say figure out what you want your role to be before you start looking at what you want your team to be.
I love that advice. I think that, that and learning from our failures. I remember when I was, I think, a freshman in high school, my biology teacher gave us that valuable lesson that if you're not failing, you're probably not learning. And so I love that that's, that you are accepting of, this didn't work, let's try something else. But I do love that you understood where you ultimately wanted to be and created the team that way. And you're so correct that there are so many different ways that you can have a team, and really understanding that is so key to building what will be successful. So Deva, you had shared with us during one of the coffee and conversations during the 2020 virtual event that you're passionate about building your team with heart. Can you tell us more about that, and how does that translate into you building your team?
I would be happy to, but I'm still reeling over Nicole taking the real estate example. She was on her due date. Like, that's insane. Just, you're amazing. I love that story. I will never forget it. That is pretty incredible. So for us, having a bigger mission, I think, has really united our team. And we have at this point a large team that is spread out geographically. But we have 2 organizations. We have Portside Real Estate Group, and we also have the Portside Foundation. And so everything that we do sort of intertwines on this bigger mission of how can we serve our community. We are committed to breaking systemic cycles and making a better Maine for the next generation. Okay, so that's sort of intertwined with everything that we do. And so with that, we have committees for the different events that we have, and we have several events throughout the year. We have, agents are volunteering, their time for our 1% mission, which is 1% of all of our gross commissions go into a fund. And then we have an agent-led committee that reads through the grants, reads through the need, and unanimously votes to fund those. So we have like a lot of things happening at once, but it really aligns and unites our team that we're here to do some work that's above and beyond real estate. I mean, yes, we are passionate about real estate. We try to do, the absolute best for our clients and operate at a really high level of professionalism, but we also have a bigger cause. And I think that is so powerful if you can find whatever that commonality is in your team to move you forward and to stay connected.
I love that. Can you share just a couple of examples of the types of projects that your foundation takes on?
Absolutely. So we have a lot of nonprofit partners. And just to give you an example, this fall here in Maine on the autumn equinox, which was, I think, September 22nd or 23rd, we had a family-friendly event, which had food trucks and a live band. And, it was in this nature park, was in an Audubon center. Where children could, be dancing and playing lawn games, and there was a craft beer and oysters, and just this whole sort of kind of county fair kind of feel. And all the agents, can invite their clients, their sphere of influence, and the money there that we raised went back to the Audubon Society, but we targeted their diversity programs to make sure that they are getting people that wouldn't necessarily be able to afford or to come or be aware of their programs. So that outreach, so we directed our funds that way. So that's just an example. And so with that, there was an agent committee that, helps get the sponsors and helps find the food trucks. And we were trying to find culturally diverse food trucks. So, it's like, there's really so many layers that they can really get involved in that. And then, putting that all together, and all the marketing that goes along with that, and helping to coordinate the agents and the whole thing. So we had probably close to 500 people at this event.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's wonderful. And it's so great. Having been an agent myself, I know the importance of that community involvement. And every time you're reaching out to somebody in the community, whether it's real estate related or foundation related, you're making another connection that is going to, in some cases, return back to your business, which is so important. I think that, that doing good is always, such an attribute to the business. So wonderful. So these past couple of years, I think it's almost been 2 years now, unfortunately, we've been in such a strange world. And I'm just kind of curious, because you both do have teams, and Deva, you've got offices. How did you keep the culture going and the teams connected during the pandemic? Nicole, you want to start?
Yeah, that is a really hard topic. I think I'm still trying to figure that out. Here in California, we're still, I wouldn't say on lockdown, but we still have a lot of restrictions, and people are still very conscious about social gatherings and large gatherings. And that even means going into the office. So, at first it was really, really hard, especially trying to keep the culture with the administrative team that you see every single day. I mean, we had our morning huddles where we all poured each other coffee and really had that belly to belly type of interaction. With the agents, it was less, difficult because we weren't seeing each other as much, but trying to figure out a way to go face to face when it's just so easy to click the stop video button on the Zoom and, you're not really present. It's really hard for me as a team leader presenting to a group of agents and admins when all their videos are off. It just, it's not the same. So I have to say it's been really, really difficult, and it's still something that we're trying to figure out. But I think one of the things that kept us going and kept the culture going was our group text. So we have this massive group text, and it actually, I have to keep it on do not disturb because sometimes it can get a little overwhelming. But the camaraderie on there is great. It's not all business. It's a lot of people sharing inspirational things. Every morning someone says good morning, someone initiates it. And it's so great to see that people are so happy to just be awake and be here and be part of the team, sending those crazy memes and emojis. And that has really helped keep our culture going, and we throw jokes in there, we throw funny stuff in there, we share successes. Even though we're not seeing each other on those group texts, you can really feel like the personalities of everyone come out in the group text. And then, just like anyone, I hate to say it, it's kind of cliche, but we had to Zoom it. So we had to take all of our weekly meetings and we had to make them Zoom. And it's really hard to keep people's attention on Zoom. So I had to make them really dynamic and, fun to keep people engaged. I'd have to call on people and say, hey, Melanie, are you there? What do you think about that? Just to make sure that even if their video is off, that they're still engaged. But it's been really tough, especially here, like I said, in California, where we can't, and people aren't even willing to kind of come together in person. So if anybody else has suggestions that you guys are doing, drop them in the chat. I'd love to hear those too.
Yeah, during one of our YPN sessions, we had some people who were talking about, what did they do to keep their YPN networks, the Young Professionals networks, going. And one of the things that was mentioned is, when you bring in a speaker or when you have somebody, it's as challenging as it can be to have things in a meeting environment, that it's so much better when you're speaking to be able to see the faces. And I know that as a viewer, sometimes it can be a little bit draining to see ourselves on screen so often. So it is a very fine balance. But as the team leader, trying to speak to a blank screen is really hard. It's draining on you. So even if you can get just a little bit of FaceTime from everyone else, I'm sure that really helps. So is the group text something that you intend to keep going as we do move back into the new normal?
Yes, absolutely. I've very much enjoyed it, and it's really good to get messaging across. And we started, an online gratitude jar that people are constantly feeding into, that feeds into that group chat as well. We use a lot of other group communications like Slack and, of course, the good old email, but that group text is really golden and key to keeping everyone on the same page and just happy and sharing.
I love that. Deva, how are you keeping your culture going?
Well, thank you. I want to hear, though, if we have time, more about that gratitude jar. That sounds really awesome and definitely right up my alley. I agree. This is my 5th Zoom call today. So, I agree with Nicole, sort of how we've had to shift that way. Being in Maine, we are a little more fortunate. We did open up sooner. We had less outbreaks. And so that was helpful. We started having our office meetings again last June. But one thing that we learned, we have an owl, so it will go to everyone's faces. So we're able to do those now in person and on Zoom. And that actually helped with attendance, because agents could log in from their phone if they're like, oh, I really wanted to go, but this last minute thing came up and I won't be able to drive to I won't have time. And so that was a positive that came out of it. I think when we had we have an annual summit, and we had it in January of 2021. So obviously it was on Zoom, and we had to do it over 3 days. And like Nicole was saying, you just really have to get creative. Like, how are you going to get that engagement? And so we had content, we had contests, and I wish I had it in front of me, but we made a booklet that we delivered to everyone's house. And so it was skill set, mindset, and gratitude. And throughout the 3 days, they had to fill out this booklet from each session. And at the end of that, it was their business plan for 2021. And so now this year, we're going to do our summit in person, hopefully, and we're going to incorporate that booklet, because everyone was like, we're doing that again, right? We're doing that again, right? I'm like, absolutely. We're going to be in person, and we're going to have your business plan booklet. So some of those ideas that were born through the pandemic are actually really helpful, and, trying to keep some of that and bring it forward as a return to a more normal situation.
Yeah, it's great to hear that you have been able to get back together. And one thing I always kind of struggled with as an agent was the lack of attendance at office meetings. And so it seems like the hybrid version really is a great answer to that, where, you do sometimes have appointments, or you'd like to be there, but that drive-in I'm not going to make it in time. I'm just not going to go. It seems like a beautiful way of blending, and getting a better attendance. And, I think that the connection over these past 2 years has really helped agents in their business and staying connected. I think people have grown in different ways. And it's sort of one of the things I valued as a new agent was going on Caravan. And I don't think Caravan is quite as popular as it used to be, but hearing the insight from the experienced agents, particularly as a newer agent, was invaluable for me. And, whatever we can do to kind of create that virtual caravan, if you will, I think is super helpful, particularly for people who are coming into a team. So I love hearing that, you've got an option for your agents that, they can still work from home if that's what's more comfortable or easier for them. So, Deborah's joining us.
I'm here. So we're actually getting several questions in, and I want to make sure that we get to those before we do our other questions. So are you ladies ready? We've got one from Debbie Sampley, who is wondering in the process who you would consult to get on track. She says her broker is not active in training. She's behind her desk watching webinars and taking trainings, but she doesn't have a business plan or social media set up. Podcasts and such are overwhelming and confusing to her. And she's really seeking that, face-to-face, one-on-one, whether it's mentoring or coaching. Like what is your advice for her? Like, where did you go to kind of seek that connection and that advice? Nicole, why don't we start with you?
So I am a huge proponent of coaching. So I've always been in some kind of coaching, even prior to real estate. I've gone through a few different coaching companies, more gone through them in the beginning, trying to find the right fit, because it is really, what you want to get out of it. You have to find that right coaching company, but then you have to find that right coach within the coaching company. And it can be like finding a needle in a haystack. And I've been really lucky that I've had a few great coaches along the way. So if you want that one-on-one mentorship, whether you're motivated, by the carrot or the stick, whichever one, then you need to get a coach. And it's expensive. That's the first thing that people ask, like, oh, well, how much is the coach? It's expensive, but you're investing in your business. And if you want someone to take personal time out of their day to tell you what you need to do on a daily, hourly, even minute by minute basis, then coaching is definitely the way to go.
Yeah, it's interesting. So part of my practice is coaching, and I don't do it as much as I used to. However, what you just said is so incredibly important, Nicole, and that coaching actually is a paid service. It is different than mentoring. We do have a beautiful mentorship program inside the Woman Up community, and that really is a volunteer position, right? A mentor is someone who wants to pour into you and share their information that they've learned, and they want to simply bless you with it. But if you're looking for somebody who is going to keep you accountable and keep your tootsies to the fire so that you're achieving your goals, you're absolutely right. There is an investment in that. And putting money aside for that is a great tip, right? Like if you don't feel like you can invest in that quite yet, then build an account, right? That is for education and coaching as a leader, because that is definitely someone you are going to want, and you will want to pay for them, because I'm sure you've experienced this, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. Pre-coach versus post-coach, Nicole.
Yeah. So I'm the stick person. So I mentioned the carrot and the stick. So those of you that don't get the analogy, you lead a horse with a carrot or you beat him with a stick. I'm not motivated by the hoorahs, go girl, go. I need to be told, why didn't you do more? Why didn't you do better? So, probably an anomaly. I think there's more carrot people out there. That being said, there's more carrot coaches out there. So it was hard for me to find that coach that made me cry, but made me cry in the right way. That really opened up my eyes to seeing where I can be better. And I think that was the biggest hurdle, pre-coaching versus post-coaching, that I had to get through, which was seeing what I didn't see. And there was no way that I would have seen it on my own in the first place. I had to have them pull back the curtains and say, you're missing this. But they couldn't just do that for me. They couldn't just literally open up the curtain and say, look, here's the, magic wand I'm going to wave. They had to take me down the path of here's where you've gone, here's where you don't want to go again. Why did you do that again? So it's a long-term relationship that you're building with the coach. And, when you find a really, really good coach, and you get really complacent, it's time to find a new one. And I know that's been really hard for me too, because I loved my last two coaches, but I was finding myself getting complacent and I really needed to turn it over. So that's also something that pre-coaching, I would have never thought. I thought I'd have a coach for life and I would love this person and they'd be like second mom or second dad to me, but you get complacent. And I think that they do too. So, pre-coaching versus post-coaching, I think I'm a lot more coachable, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does. Well, and inside these conversations that we've had over the last 5 years inside the Woman Up community, there is a season, right? Coaches come into your life for seasons, right? And sometimes it can be for a reason, but mostly mentorship is the reason, relationship, and coaching is a season. And so I love that differentiation. And I particularly, it makes me smile a little bit where you're like, finding the right person to coach you. It takes time. Right. And so it's with anything, with a doctor, somebody who's going to be a lawyer, an attorney for your company, you want to interview more than one person, right? And being your authentic self and saying, I am a stick person, right? I'm not a carrot person. Like, this is what's important, because you need partners who will be a mirror for you, right? Who will ask you the deepest questions, and pluck the answers out of your soul that you were like, how did I not see this before? Right. And help you move forward. I think that's beautiful. Dava, how about you? Like, who was the person, or who are the people who continue to really help you get on track, stay on track, see a new track?
Well, I completely echo what Nicole has shared. I am also a big coaching person, coaching for, I was in sales, my sales team, coaching for how to run a business, coaching for endurance sports that I do. I mean, always looking for that person that's, going to be able to challenge me, that has done it and done it at a higher level than me. That's who I'm looking for. There's lots of coaches out there, and I think Nicole touched on it. You want the ones that actually have done, that are more successful than you, and now they're coaching. I think coaching is really hard work. You are not going to sign up for coaching and you're like, I'm doing coaching and now I'm selling 20 houses a year. Coaching is work. Coaching is hard. That's when you're doing the work. Someone is just guiding you. And so you have to be ready for it. I think for the woman that asked the question, my first thought was, and I always say what I mean, maybe you're not at the right brokerage. Like, if you're at a brand new agency and you don't have those resources, you might want to find an agency that does have a mentor program. We would never bring an agent on into our company without signing them for a full year with a mentor. That we have a whole program for it. We have all kinds of training, and they have one-on-one mentoring for that entire year to get them through. And with that comes all the checklists, and comes with a social media plan, and comes with all those things. Because listen, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Let's just share information with each other and rise, and we can rise together. So maybe that is worth, if you don't have money for coaching, you're not even quite ready for it, if you haven't had enough experience, maybe finding a brokerage that is going to, offer you a little bit more for where you are right now. And maybe that brokerage is a little bit more expensive, but it might be worth it, so you can invest in yourself and move forward.
That's a great word, especially for those in the community who are sitting as single agents, right? That are running the solopreneur lifestyle, right? And they're thinking about that building of a team. Because one of the things we've heard woven into every single conversation this month about team building, and Melanie, feel free to chime in here, it really is around shouting out who you are in all of your messaging, right? So the women that we had Anna, and both of them have very different vibes on their team. One is all women. They pray before their meetings. They get together and collectively decide if they're going to hire someone. It really, they move like a unit. They move as one. And if one person says no, it's no, right? They really do work in a very collaborative environment. And then Anne has her focus is on DEI, equity. She's in a very diverse neighborhood and it shows in her agents. I'm really curious how the two of you have aligned to your values inside your structure. So, Deva, you were mentioning earlier that you started as an admin, and I even popped in the notes like this. It's a brilliant move. If you don't know what you're getting into in this business, like the admin sees all. Like there's nothing that you haven't seen now. And so, how did you go from admin, from sitting in that seat, and decide, okay, here's who I am and here's what I want to create, and then actually build that to your values?
Thank you for that question. I mean, I think it is, when I think of it, I went from an admin to owning a company in 4 years in a new industry. I forgot to mention I had moved to Maine like a month before, so I didn't know anyone. That was another reason why I joined a team, because I was like, I didn't really know what. That was when you had to like plug your GPS into the cigarette lighter, and I'm like, where am I going? What's with all this snow? But I think, every one of us has inside of us already that potential, and it's just releasing it and knowing so I took that step back and I just absorbed everything. I mean, I can remember like practicing the PNS upside down because I was going to be the best realtor I possibly could. And I just took that, 8 or 9 months and just absorbed everything. And I kept thinking, when I have a team and I'm the leader, I'm going to do it this way. Not that that's a wrong way, but it's not going to be my way, and just kept thinking and just picturing like where I was going to be. So, I mean, I never pictured where I'd be now, but I knew I was going to not be there. But I knew that's where I had to start. So I could have that experience. I could have that knowledge. I could have some credibility. And I think, you make a great point too, about someone that might be looking for a little bit more in this industry is, joining a team, getting a partner, informal or not, and just really, having that strength together. Because when I left that team, I immediately took someone else, and was like, let's do this on our own, but I knew I needed people around me.
Yeah, I love the side sorry, not sorry. But that I think that's part of the flow inside this industry, right? Is that we have to be open to our team creating their own team, right? Because that does happen, right? And that's the importance of sharing who you are, right? So ideally that happens less, and it happens in a way that you can celebrate it versus, like the gut punch. Like, oh, they're leaving.
A little bit of a gut punch at first, but then you have to celebrate it and be proud and be like, oh, whatever I did allowed you to have this confidence, and now go and do your own thing. And I think that's like a moment of real pride when that does happen. And that is my hope for everyone on my team. If there's something that you're meant to do next, like I want to get you there. And I am, grateful for the time that you were here.
That's beautiful. So you mentioned earlier, and I loved the conversation that we had in 2020 with you around community. So obviously that's a big value. Do you have another big bucket value that you like, if they aren't sharing this, they're not joining your team? Is there something else that?
I think besides that, it's like attracts like, so we tend to get a lot of people that are sort of on the same wavelength with the community involvement. But I think the other thing for us is we are trying to make improvements every day in our industry and operating at a very high level of professionalism, whether it's ethics, whether it's just presenting a listing in the best possible way for our clients to put them in the best negotiation position because we did our job. So like, I think just if someone isn't at our level and they don't want to be, then it's not a fit. And I think that those probably are the two things that differentiate sort of us and what we're looking for.
That's good. So do you find that you recruit people that are the co-op agent? Are people like, wow, I love your style over there, Deva?
Yeah, I think that is mostly the agents are the best recruiters. They have a lot of friends, and then their friends want to, work with them. So that it's really helpful.
I love that. Nicole, I'd love to hear how you weave your values in. And then, we haven't really talked a whole lot about how you work with Side. And so I kind of, Side's one of our sponsors, and we've had a couple of Side brokers on, but it would be interesting to understand, how does that structure fit in with your, aligning to your values, and then help you grow your team, help you build this successful team you're creating?
Well, I'll take the first part about, the alignment with regards to my expectations from the team. We do have our company core values and mission statement, and, anyone that doesn't fit into those core values, they don't either resonate with them, or they don't embrace them, and they don't embody them, and they're not, showing up and doing them every single day, they're not a good fit for our team. And as much as it pains me, and I hate to say it, we have let people go because of that, not because of performance. In fact, we've let some top performers go because they don't embrace our core values, and they're not the right culture fit, and they're not the people that we want our level up stamp on. So if they're not, doing the right thing all the time, like no matter what, like that's huge, that's important. And then also, back to expectations, I don't expect my team members to do anything that I either haven't done or wouldn't do myself. So I've been there, done that kind of thing, and I've, earned my stripes, so to speak. But at the same time, there's things that change that maybe I haven't done, but I'm right there in the weeds with them, learning the new systems, or making the cold calls, or doing the new dialer campaign with this system that everybody says doesn't work, but it's just user error. And I say the same thing, this piece of crap doesn't work, until we figure it out together. And then it's the best thing since sliced bread. So I don't ever ask them to do something that I'm not going to get in the weeds and try to figure out myself, or haven't had that stripe that's been earned, have been there, done that. And I think that's important, because I want to be a leader, not just a manager. And I want them to look at me and go, oh, I want to be more like our core values, more like Nicole, rather than, what am I doing here? This isn't who I am.
I love that. Well, and I really want to highlight what you said quickly at the beginning, but I think that is really imperative for anyone who's building a team, whether you have a team under a brokerage, or whether you're taking your team into your own brokerage. And that is hire slow, fire fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we as human beings know when we say yes to something that we should have said no to. Like, our intuition tells us. And I think that that's such powerful permission to remind us all that we have that power to do that, Nicole, is to say, this isn't working. In my brokerage days, I saw this more than once, when a broker owner would fire a top agent. I'm talking like the big purple gorilla that owns so much of the neighborhood, right? And when they would walk out the door, that mid 15, that beautiful group of agents who just couldn't get up to the top because there was that one person, they started thriving. And there was a beautiful, just a shift in the energy in the office. So don't be afraid to fire. I think I really want to underline that. Okay. Any other thoughts on that before you do share about how Side helps you kind of pull it all together?
Yeah. I don't think you can say it enough times, like quick to fire. Absolutely. It was hard for me. It really was hard for me to do that. And, it's never easy, even today, when I've got, unfortunately, a lot of those experiences under my belt. It's just not easy, but in the long run, it's toxic to your team to keep someone that doesn't embrace your core values part of the team.
Yeah. Well, we had actually, that just reminded me of a story that Tammy Bunnell shared. We'll have to send that out or post that on the Facebook group again. She shares this story about early in her career, where she really had to do a big round of firing. And she had brought this one woman in who was just not doing it. Like it just, she wasn't selling. She just wasn't the right fit. And Tammy started the conversation by asking her this question, which is brilliant, which is, if you weren't doing this, what would you be doing? And the woman actually answered and said, I would be an ER nurse for an ER, like neonatal nurse. Like it was really specific. And Tammy was like, well, today's your lucky day. Like, you get to fulfill that dream. And this woman, of course there was still tears and all of that, but this woman needed the permission to leave, right? She needed somebody to help her cut that cord. And now she's still every year at Thanksgiving sends Tammy a thank you note because she released her. And so sometimes I think that we feel as leaders that we need to save people, or we need to fix people and, do the things that they need to be better at what they do, but we can't control that. Right. And so it's so important when, especially the larger your team gets, to release yourself from that stress.
I love where you were going with that, Deborah, and how that ties in beautifully with what Nicole said about, helping people discover, what it is that they want to achieve, and, helping develop that in them. I think that's beautiful. And, in thinking of yourself as a team leader and how you really can develop, you can't make people do anything that they don't want to do, just like you can't make anybody buy a house that they don't want to buy. That would just be a mistake all around.
Yes. Okay. So let's get to shining a light on the side element before we have one more question and then some final bits of advice. So if anybody out there has any more questions, please drop them in the chat and we'll get them in.
Yeah. So I think I mentioned early on that I run really lean, which was a true statement, but not necessarily 100% accurate. I have a small staff, but I'm able to have that small staff because side, gives us so much on the back end. And what's amazing about them is not only do they give it to us on the back end, but they really are in the background. Like, most people, unless they get, they talk to side as another agent, don't even realize that my white label brokerage Level Up Realty is a part of side, because it's been my brand even prior to side. And it's known in the community as a small independently owned brokerage, which is true, but we're backed by, one of the largest real estate companies in the nation right now, which is so amazing and impactful to my business. Anything from, software selection to business planning, accounting. I mean, it's not like a commercial for them, but like I tell anyone and everyone who talks to me about side is like, there is no bait and switch with this company. It does sound too good to be true. And it is. And if you, are thinking about it, do it, because it won't last, because they are very, selective with who they bring in, just like we as a team are, because they don't just bring any top producing agent. We are like a family. I've been there. I was partner number 10, and I was actually the very first independent broker to onboard with side. And it has evolved, but I have to say the culture has not changed. And that is something that is so important to the success of the company, because I see them being like something bigger than they even are now, bigger than Guy Gal, bigger than Hillary Saunders, like bigger than Level Up and all of the partners out there. Like they really do make a difference and impact people's business who deserve that impact, that positive impact. Reaching that glass ceiling was really hard for me. And I really didn't see a way to bust through that glass ceiling. I wasn't, for me, it wasn't more units. It wasn't more volume. I'm happy with 300 units a year. I'm happy with 150 million in production. I'm like, that's amazing. I love that. But I wanted time back in my day. I wanted to be able to come home and have dinner with my kids and have dinner with my family and to, volunteer at the school. I was not able to do that until I came on to side. And now, I do all those things. I can't tell you, I turn my phone off at 5 o'clock. I would say 4 days a week, 4 out of 5 days a week. I don't work weekends. And before that, I was literally the hamster on the wheel, just like spinning. I had like mange. I was like the sad, skinny, scrawny hamster actually. So they've helped in so many ways that I can't even like begin to say at the back end.
Yeah, this is I feel like we're in a little bit of a therapy session here, because there's another great reminder that, that you're giving, Nicole. And that is like, we live in a hustle industry, and there's so much senseless hustle, right? I mean, hustle is one thing, getting the job done is one, but the senseless hustle that you have to be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to your clients. I have no idea who started that saying, I'm pretty certain it was a man because they don't have all the responsibilities that women carry inside the home, whether there's children or not, or anyone else. Just the role of a woman is so much more expansive than her and her sovereignty. And we've not busted that myth yet. There are still so many agents and brokers who feel like they have to have their phone on all day long, or somehow they're going to miss or not be available, or the world will fall apart if they turn their phone off. And I think it's so powerful that you're like, yep, 3-4 days a week, my phone's off at 5. I'm not here. I'm not working on the weekends. Like, you don't have to drive yourself into the ground to run a successful business in this industry. You don't have to.
Yeah, I have a saying, and I think I stole it from like one of those cheesy comedy movies, but it's like, but did you die? Or did anybody die? At the end of the day, escrows don't kill people. And one of my friends, Kendra Cook, who's a coach, by the way, she's like, you can't get a black eye on the phone. Like, nobody's going to die. Nobody's going to get hurt. Nobody's going to lose anything. So at the end of the day, turn your phone off. And I promise you that next day, you're going to be far more productive and far more, you're going to show up so much better for your clients and for your team than you did, as that exhausted, tired, ready for happy hour, ready for your family time, ready for whatever that next thing in your day is, than if you try to fix it in that moment, completely frustrated with something else.
I'm just going to hop in here. Kendra Cook is awesome. I know her well from the core. And I think that hustle culture, I think whether you're an individual agent, you're on a team, you own a brokerage, I think it boils down to having systems. Because if you're an individual agent, but you have a really dialed in system and you have that friend in the office that's going to cover you, and you just have a way to work it out, like at our company, we've got your back program. So anyone at any time can get showing coverage. End of discussion. Every life happens. And so I just think that there's systems and there's ways, and we have to do it together, and we have to share these ideas, because I just want to cry when I hear people are getting burnt out and they're in that. And when, especially when they're women and they are carrying that, so much as Deborah mentioned. So I think, dialing in the systems is a way for freedom from that culture, hustle culture.
Yeah.
So can I just ask a follow-up question, since you both mentioned Kendra? Can you tell us a little bit more about the core and how you both know her so well?
Yeah, I'm a former core coaching student. I was with them for a few years. I was lucky to be coached by Kendra herself for a while, and she's now one of the executives there next to Rick Ruby. If you're a stick person like me, the core is definitely a coaching company you should look into. They're not the rah-rah. I mean, they definitely work hard, play hard, and have fun, but they're not the rah-rah, you can do this. They're like, no, this is due. If you don't get this, P&L sheet into me by the end of the week, you have to pay $1,000 to my favorite charity. And that really helped it taught me a lot of structure, let me just say, because I've paid a lot of money to a lot of charities that I have no interest in.
What's so interesting about what you said is the second you said you can't get a black eye on the phone, I was like, oh, she found a right coach.
Yeah.
I'm darn sure I would never say that out loud. I might think it, but that's a stick coach. And that right there, right? Just by the analogies and the metaphors that a coach uses on their site, in their content, if they're going to be a fit for you. Oh my gosh, I love it. Oh, so good. I just saw, is this the right core? Thecoretraining.com. Is that
yeah.
Okay? So anyone seeking a stick, you have a place to go.
Are you a core coaching alumni or person?
Did you ask me?
I am.
Oh,
yeah.
Perfect. I love it. Okay. I'm going to go and grab the mentorship link, Melanie, while you ask the next question.
Yep. We've got one final question from Mary Jane. She is asking, how can all team members own the firm financially and then gain from possibly selling it in 10 to 15 years later? So kind of talking about structure. And I know we've talked about mergers and acquisitions and different ways of benefiting from the seasonal changes that teams go through. So Deva, do you want to start with this one? Any advice you can give here?
I don't know if I clearly understand the question. Can you say it one more time? So it's like
She's basically saying, how can you have almost like a joint partnership is my understanding. How can the team members own the firm financially and then sell it in the future?
I can take if you want.
Go for it, Nicole.
So, I mean, the first step is to own your own business, right? You're not just an independent agent under a brokerage. You have to start a business. It's not saying go out and start your own real estate firm, because you can do that. I do that under side. You can do that under XYZ brokerage, right? But you have to start a corporation. You have to start an S Corp or an LLC, depending on what's right for you. And then you have to have those, have it set up to where the agents can either monetarily buy into it or earn shares from your company. So you have to run it like a company. And then the most important thing beyond that is to look at what's called your Ebitda, which is your earnings before interest, taxes, amortization, and I think I'm forgetting one, which is different than your profit. And that's what you're going to be able to sell your company for, which means that you not only need to treat your organization like a company, but you need to be bottom line driven as well, not just thinking about the agent, but thinking about what your company how healthy your company is as a company overall, if your intent is to sell it.
Yeah. So good. I love that. Well, and, I think that we are starting to have more conversations like that inside the community, because we have, the average age of an agent in the industry is 56, 57. I think it was 56 this past year, which is like a year younger than it was last year, but we're still talking mid 50s. And so if that's the average age, we do have a lot of agents who are ready to like enter their third act and not do the day to day. And so I think we'll probably do some bigger conversations about that in 2022, but I love the reminder that there are conversations you can start having now with a coach, right? that helps set you up for success in that future selling. I'm a huge believer in the work back, right? Where do you want your business to be in 10 years? As far as if you want to sell it in 10 years, and then what do you want to sell it for? What does it need to be worth? Right. And working back from that. Okay. So before we do last bits of advice, one of the things that I love to know from team builders is how you celebrate successes. Like what is it that you do inside your organization, your team, your brokerage that celebrates successful moments? Dava, let's start with you.
I think for us, we try to do that on a daily basis. Obviously it's been a banner year in real estate. So like every month is a celebration of the big numbers, but it's really the small things and recognizing the contributions that people have in a small way that sometimes would go unnoticed. And so we have a culture of really being able to, celebrate someone when they do something small, and just having that on a constant basis, I think just really helps that positivity and just being kindness and caring, for each other.
I love that. How about you, Nicole?
So we,
you offer carrots?
Yeah, I do. What is this whole carrot thing? I have to figure out like what people who like enjoy celebrating like to do, because I'm just like, give me more, tell me I need to do more. But like David said, it's been such a good year. It's been really easy to celebrate the small successes, but I don't want my people to get complacent. So we definitely need to we have to put our goals higher. And then when we reach those higher goals, have a bigger celebration for those higher goals. So we have we talked about the virtual gratitude jar. We have a virtual quote unquote swear jar. Anyone who knows me that I have a potty mouth. I've been very, very, very good, I think. On this session. But I'm usually really bad about it, but it's not your typical swear jar. The swear jar that we use is if someone doesn't complete their prospecting on time, the team says what their fine is, and their fine goes into that swear jar. If they don't show up for a team meeting that week, it's $10 to the swear jar. If they don't host an open house, it's $50. So they don't have to do the things that they're supposed to do to show up every single day or every single week, but there are monetary repercussions. And then that swear jar funds, something that we do fund together quarterly, whether it's going paintballing or throwing a party, or, during COVID, we actually did we donated it to a charity which made everybody feel good. And then we all just, did a virtual happy hour together. So whatever they choose to spend that on, and believe it or not, it gets, pretty up there as far as being funded. People don't
It's
always.
like you have a little mini core jar there.
Yeah, we have our.
You implemented it there. That's so good. I know that Deva is really curious about this as well, but tell us, how does the virtual gratitude jar work? I love that.
It's super simple to set up. We used Google Sheets. So we made it all pretty, and then we sent out the link. So anytime someone wants to say thank you, or they saw somebody do something that maybe no one else would have seen, or just a kudos. And we do this not just for people within the team, but if we see another agent do something, like I saw Deborah from XYZ Realty today, and she helped me with blah, blah, blah. We put that in there too, so that we know that like there's other great things happening in the world outside of us. And so I think it just helps people realize that, like, even though we're not out there because of COVID, like good things still are happening. But they just pop it in there. It's super simple. Your name, the name of the person that you're giving kudos to, and then what happened. And it gets the Google Sheet automatically sends it out in our text thread, but also emails a copy. So everyone kind of gets those sporadically and without warning. And then it's kind of like oh, cool, something great just happened in the day that I had nothing to do with, but I know these people, and that's kind of cool.
I love that. Well, we have a virtual gratitude jar at Woman Up as well. We don't call it that, but we might start doing that. It's called Shine a Light on Her. And so I would encourage anyone who is watching us live or catching the replay later, visit iamwomanup.com/shine-a-light. And that allows you to shine a light on a fellow community member, somebody on your team that you want us at Woman Up to share inside our social media stream. So we use our platform to say, share a quote. Sometimes people send us USSy pictures of the two of them and a little story, but it's our version of that in the community. And it's so much fun. We usually do a big push for it in Women's History Month in March. And some of the stories, I mean, Melanie and I will be sobbing reading these stories because it's just, this sisterhood is so strong in this industry. And we need to shine a light on that more, because we always hear the opposite, right? Like women don't support each other, or, I was backstabbed by a woman. We tell these stories over and over, but we really have a lot more stories about the goodness that flows between us as an industry. And so I love that. I love the Google Drive. All right, Melanie, you want to close it up with the finals and all of the good stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd love to hear just a final piece of advice. Nicole, we can start with you.
So I'm going to say it again, even though we've said it probably more than anything else on this call, but, slow to hire and quick to fire. Don't let someone whose, toxicity is within themselves ruin it for everyone. And, if you haven't been there and seen it firsthand, just please, please, please let me tell you that it's not worth it to keep that person on. You learn from my mistakes.
That is pure wisdom that I hope everybody heard and is listening to, because, if you can save one person from making the mistakes that you've been through, that will be, that'll have made this entire session. So thank you, Nicole, for sharing that. Deva, what's your one final piece of advice?
Yeah, I think in regards to our topic, building successful teams is allowing everyone on the team to be a leader. There's the leader of the details. There's like the leader of creative ideas, the leader on this project. And I think that's where the greatness happens. If, we're not, leading this way, we're leading, I do our org chart, we do like circles, because that's how teams work, right? We're working together, and each piece fits together to make the whole machine work. So I think, there's a leader, sometimes the quietest person in the room truly is the leader, and so just really honoring everyone's strengths.
I love that. Do you have any of the creative job titles for your team members?
We probably have traditional titles for the most part.
I know some companies come up with just brilliant names. So
we have them like internally, like the happiness coordinator, but on our front facing stuff, we have the regular stuff.
That's fantastic. I love that. So Deva, what is the best way for the community to connect with and support you? Is it Facebook, LinkedIn? What's the best way that people can reach out to you?
Sure. My name is Deva Davin, and if you Google that, I am the only Deva Davin that's in real estate in the country. So you can find me there and follow me on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, etc. My company is Portside Real Estate Group, and again, we're on all the social platforms. Should be easy to find.
Fantastic. We will absolutely share out those links. Nicole, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Well, if you Google me, there's me and then a lender in Texas. So make sure that it's me. But otherwise, if you look us up, we're Level Up Brokerage on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, pretty much any other handle. We try to keep it consistent. And you can always drop me a line at nicole@levelupbrokerage.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to the both of you for joining us today. You have shared just absolute wisdom nuggets. It's been a pleasure getting to know both of you a little bit better, and I hope that you will continue to enrich our community.
Thanks, guys.
So much. This was wonderful.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.